Hey guys, how's it going? Seth here from REtipster, and in this video, I'm going to give you a crash course in driving for dollars. So what is the idea behind driving for dollars? Really what we're doing is we're going to get in the car and we're going to drive around and scope out properties that show visible signs of distress. So we're talking like peeling paint, roofs that are completely destroyed, maybe if tenants have thrown trash all over the lawn, or if there's broken windows or boarded up windows, anything like that that shows that there's a problem going on at this property. Because a lot of times, if there are outward visible signs of distress like this, there's a pretty good chance this particular property owner is having problems with the property, and they may be willing to sell at a significantly discounted price. They are what we call the classic motivated seller. So the idea is to find these properties, and when we do, we want to reach out and contact that property owner and see if they may be interested in selling their property. Now, there's a few reasons why you would want to do this instead of some of the other motivated seller strategies out there. First of all, it is a more time-intensive strategy, but it also doesn't cost a whole lot. Other than the cost of gas and your time driving around looking for these properties, you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on direct mail. With things like direct mail or other advertising strategies, inevitably you're gonna waste a lot of money getting in front of a lot of people who will never do business with you and are not motivated to sell their property. Whereas in this case, you can hyper-target properties where there is a much higher likelihood that they will be willing and able to sell at a significant discount. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to jump in the car and I'm going to take you around town and show you a few examples of properties that I would consider to be distressed properties. These are the types of property owners that I would be looking up, reaching out to, and seeing if they would be interested in selling their property. So let's jump in the car quick and I'll show you more about what I'm talking about here. And all right guys, we're here. I think we found one. I see a house right over here that's got some boarded up windows. I see another one over there that has like some plastic sheeting over it. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if there's some problem or issue, or if maybe there was a fire or something like that. But whenever I see signs like that, that tells me pretty clearly whoever owns that property, you know, there's a good chance that they either want out of it or they're not interested in it, or for whatever reason, you know, there's an issue and I can sort of show up and offer them a solution. And my solution is going to be an offer that's all cash, but significantly less than full market value. One other really important thing we want to do at this point while we are identifying properties is to take note of the addresses we see, and also obviously the street that these properties are on. Then we can look these up online and find the mailing address of the property owner. So if they don't actually live at this property, we can find out how to get a hold of them. But in order to do that, you have to know what the address of the property is. An interesting thing with this one right here that apparently had a fire, there is no address number on it. So the only way I can find that out is to understand approximately where the parcel is. And I can do that by taking note of the address of the property behind me, which is 26 is the number. So I'm going to take note of that and go look up that property, and then just remember the one that I actually want to contact is the one across the street right here. So that's a little trick you can use. Even if there's no number on the house that you're trying to look up the property information on, that's how you can find it. So let's go drive around to a couple other ones and I'll show you some other examples of what distressed properties might look like. Alright guys, so I found one more. This is another house with some boarded up windows, and you can just kind of tell this thing is not in good shape. There's clearly a lot of problems going on, and I can tell by looking at it, nobody's living here. There's not really any curtains on it, and there's no furniture, there's nothing inside. So this would be another example of a type of property where I would reach out to these property owners after looking up their information online. And I can do that because I've taken note of what street I'm on. The address number is 1801, so I can take note of that too if I wanted to look this one up and contact this property owner. So now that we've got a few written down here, I'm gonna go back to my computer and show you exactly what I would do if I wanted to look these properties up, find the owner's contact information, and reach out to them. And I should also mention that the ways I'm showing you to do this here is like the conventional way that we can drive for dollars. There's actually a software out there that I did a completely separate review on called Deal Machine. And Deal Machine is really designed to make this whole process a lot easier, where I can go out and snap pictures of these properties, and really from the road, from the app on my phone, I can start sending the mail. And the mail has a picture of the house that I took to the property owner. So it's very clear that I, as the sender of the mail, have been to the property. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's just a really slick service that can work really well and make a lot of this a lot faster and easier. It still requires that you get out and drive for dollars and find these properties and do all this stuff. But in terms of looking up the property owner information and getting that mail out to them and starting that conversation, it streamlines a lot of that. And it's not terribly expensive. If you're actually serious about doing driving for dollars on a regular basis, I think it's a pretty easy decision to go with that. But you can check out the separate review I did for Deal Machine and just get a really good idea for how that works and whether or not it's something you want to explore. But with that, let's head back to my office and we'll start looking these property owners up. Okay, so now that I'm sitting down on my computer, I just want to reiterate the reason why we are doing this thing called driving for dollars. And really the primary reason is because it doesn't cost a whole lot of money. And when you compare this strategy to things like direct mail or other forms of paid advertising, which inevitably are going to include a lot of wasted money on reaching out to people who just aren't a good fit for what we're doing, with driving for dollars, we're able to target very specifically which properties we want to go after and be a lot more intelligent about the ones we choose to pursue from the very beginning. The downside about driving for dollars is that it takes a lot more time and it's not very scalable because of this bottleneck, where you can only go after as many properties as you're willing to drive out and identify and then send mail to. This whole strategy is definitely not the right fit for everybody, but you know who you are. If you don't have a whole lot of money, but you do have time to go look for opportunities, that's when you might want to consider going through this process. And I'd also say that it usually doesn't make sense to do this with just 1 or 2 properties at a time like we're doing in this video. If you're really serious about doing this and finding a lot of deals at the highest scale possible, it usually makes a lot more sense to go out on one trip and get dozens, maybe even hundreds of properties and batch the process to the extent that you can. And again, a tool like Deal Machine can make this process a lot faster. You don't have to use that, but if you're really serious about scaling this to the extent possible, Deal Machine could be worth checking out. I think it's also important to understand what types of people have the ability and the desire to sell their property at a huge discount. For example, if the owner lives in another state, so their property is basically out of sight, out of mind, statistically, those types of property owners tend to be much more willing to sell their property at a discount. Also, obviously, like we've already shown in this video, properties that are in total disrepair or are clearly in need of help in some way. Another situation where property owners are able to sell at a huge discount is when they have little or no mortgage balance. And there's actually a lot of properties out there, up to 1/3 of properties that don't have a mortgage on them. And it's usually because those properties are not very expensive to begin with, and or they've just been owned for a long time by the same person. So they've owned it long enough to pay off that mortgage. And luckily, as I'll show you in this video, we're actually able to see that as we go and start researching these properties individually. But ultimately, I think the more layers of potential motivation you can apply to each property, the greater likelihood you'll have of finding a deal, because there's not just one potential reason why they'd be willing to sell at a discount. There's a lot of reasons stacked up on top of each other. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Now, there are several ways you can go about finding the owner's contact information. And in many counties and cities throughout the US, you can look up the owner's information for free on the city or county website if you can find it, and if the local government makes that information available and convenient for you. But not all of them do this. Some of them make it really hard, and even when they do make it available, it's definitely not a user-friendly experience. But just to show you one of many examples of what this could look like, I'm going to try to look up this property's info on the Marion County, Indiana website, because this property is in Indianapolis. So let's go ahead and start there. We're going to type out Marion County, Indiana property tax search just to see what that gives us. And I'm not really sure which one of these is the best one to start with, so we'll just pick one and see where it leads us. Okay, so just based on the information we have the address, and that's pretty much all we've got. So we're going to go ahead and search by address. And remember, I don't have the address of the property that I'm targeting, that one that was clearly burned out and had some kind of a fire. All I have is the address of the property across the street from that. And the address of that property was, I think, 26 Adler. So let's see what that gives us. Okay, it looks like this is 26 East Adler, so we'll click on that, and that gives us this information. Let's go ahead and click on this and see what we get. So what I can see here is the owner's name, and I can see the owner's address, which is clearly a different address than the address of the property itself. So I know right off the bat this is an absentee owner, which was actually pretty evident just by looking at that property. This also tells me how much the property was sold for and when it was sold, and a bunch of different stuff like that. However, remember, the reason I'm even searching for this property is because I'm trying to find the address and the owner information of the one across the street from it. And just based on what this PDF is telling me, I don't really see that info. So another thing I could do is go to Google Maps and try to look up something like that. And it looks like with Google Maps, I'm able to click on any one of these parcels and see the address of that property, which is actually really, really helpful. I'm not sure if this functionality works everywhere or if it's just in bigger cities like Indianapolis, but that right there could give us everything we need to know, that 1902, because now we can go back to this website here and look it up that way. There we go. Let's go ahead and click on that. And now we can download this property report. And now this tells us the name of the company that owns it, their mailing address, and that right there is pretty much all we would need to go about sending mail to that owner to start the conversation of whether or not they would be interested in selling. So that's the free version of how to go about finding this property information. But the problem is, if I were to go and try to do this in the county next door, first of all, I don't know if they would even have a website like this available. And even if they did, it would be a totally different format. I'd have to completely relearn where and how to find the information I'm looking for. I don't know if Google Maps would provide the same kind of address information on any property I clicked on. So I'm not telling you it can't work, but I'm saying there's a lot of potential obstacles you could encounter, especially if you want to have a consistently reliable place to go and get this information. So another way to go about doing this is with a service called DataTree. And REtipster actually has an affiliate relationship with these guys where you can get some discounted pricing on the normal price. If you're at all interested in that, I'm going to have that affiliate link beneath this video if you decide you want to do this. Again, no pressure. There's lots of other companies that do a very similar thing, but this is the one we use. And it's not just because of the price. They also do a really good job of providing a ton of information, not just for property research, but also for direct mail throughout the US. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my DataTree account and show you how I would go about looking up a property owner's information that way. So I'm going to go here and log in. And once I log into my DataTree account, I'm going to want to go up here and search by the address because, again, that's all we really had to start with. I'm going to start by entering in the address of that property across the street, remember, because that's all we had. And then there we go. We'll go ahead and click on that. And the first thing it's going to show us is not only all the basic property information and a street view of the property, but also I can see this map over here, which shows me very quickly which parcel that one is. And the nice thing about DataTree is that I can see without going anywhere else that right across the street, this is the property I'm going for. And all I have to do is click on it and it's going to show me not just the address of that property, but also the name of the property owner. And all I got to do is click on view the property right here. And then I'm going to go right over here where it says property data reports. And there's a couple different options that could serve my purposes. I could either do the property detail report that's going to show me all the basics, or the total view report, which is going to show me like every possible thing that's available on this property. So I'm going to click that one and then I'm going to click order down here. And then you can see it's processing up here. And then just like that, it kind of blows you away with a lot of information. I can see the owner name. I can see that it's a company. I can see the company's mailing address. I can see the approximate value range of the property if it was like retail ready and on the market. Obviously, this property is not retail ready since it's like halfway burned out, but that at least gives me some frame of reference. I can also see any public liens on the property. If there were any loans or mortgages on the property, those would show up here. However, this one is owned free and clear by Simple Quarters LLC. We can also see assessed value, property tax amount, comparable properties, nearby listings, market trend statistics, statistics, a ton of information that's available right here through this total view report in data tree. So it's super simple just through the click of this order button to get a lot of information, to get very educated on this property before we even start talking to this person. And I'll tell you, if I started researching a property like this, say one that was not burned out like this particular example is, and I saw that this property address was the exact same as the owner's mailing address, in other words, this is an owner-occupied property, and say if they had a huge mortgage on the property, that would give me a lot of different clues that it's probably a lot less likely that this person is willing and able to sell at a discount because they got a mortgage and this is their actual home. Why would they sell the roof over their head for pennies on the dollar? A lot of that information to give you clues one way or another is available right here in data tree. And you cannot necessarily get all this information just by using the free methods that the county may or may not make available to you. So again, if you think data tree would be a helpful resource, by all means, we got that affiliate link with the discounted pricing. Feel free to check it out. And of course, there are a lot of other services out there that do a very similar thing to data tree. So it's not like you have to use this. It just happens to be the one that we use. And since we have the discounted pricing available, we wanted to make sure you were aware of that too. So that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Driving for dollars is not for everyone, but for the right person, it can make a lot of sense just in terms of getting started and finding deals without spending a fortune on your upfront marketing. And if you're at this point in the process of researching the property owner, the next natural question might be, okay, what kind of mail am I supposed to send them? What do I say? Do I send a letter? Do I send a postcard? How frequently do I send it? There's a lot of different philosophies and ideas behind how to approach this. But if you're looking for a direct mail template, I actually do have a few examples on the blog you can check out if you have no idea where to start. And these are postcard examples. These are ones I've actually used in many of my direct mail campaigns, and they've all worked really well. So if you have no idea where to start, you can feel free to check out those. I'll be sure to include a link to that blog post. One way or another, I hope you find those helpful. Thanks again for watching, and I wish you all the best as you get out there and start finding deals.